yourself. So, you know, the idea is we can think about ways to make personal and institutional commitments to a shared future together. So let's do some more introductions. In chat, if you're comfortable, not required, please share out your name, if it's not your handle that's already in there, your role. And I'm curious about this third bullet point, because I was talking to somebody and they told me that everybody has a favorite deep sea creature and they want to tell everyone else about it. So is that true? I don't know. Let's see. Feel free to hop in and chat. Oops. Oh, the octopus, good one. What was the movie? My Friend the Octopus? I can't remember it. Sea turtles, those are great. Dolphins, My Octopus Teacher, thank you, yeah. Shrimp, manatees, yeah. Seahorses, those are good ones. All right, so maybe it's true. Maybe everyone does know what their deep sea creature friend is and love to talk about it. The Japanese spider crab. Cool. Anglerfish. Oh, the leafy sea dragon. I think I can imagine what that looks like. Orientation and the Oarfish sounds like the name of a great band. Awesome. I'll let those continue to populate. Thank you for sharing those. Oh, it can. Okay.
Right as I asked, no whales. Somebody said whale.
Yes.
Thank you, Sherry.
The beluga. Sure. And Tyler also throws in his whales too. Okay. So usually at the top of these meetings, I go right into a design activity, and we'll do that today. But first, I wanted to get to pending business of timelines, because I think that's probably one of the big questions that folks have had here. And we wanted to relay the updates to the timeline of using the new website services. So quickly to reset the table, the strategy of what we're trying to do with our websites is to build quality and effective ones. The WordPress theme is what we believe is going to get us part of the way there. The web service is going to leverage WordPress as the platform for website owners to create and maintain websites. I know this might be basic, but just resetting the table here. The technical support part of websites, that's going to be provided by ITS and the web services team. The web service itself is part of a larger ecosystem. That ecosystem includes things like training on content to making sites accessible, content strategy, web analytics, and that ecosystem also includes the community of practice. It's made up of website owners, content creators, so we can meet, learn, share success stories, best practices. It's kind of what we're doing right here today. That's that ecosystem. And the timeline now looks like this. So you received the email that we sent out earlier this month. I would say the work is ongoing for all four of these components right here, but there are some sequencing changes, which is what we tried to describe in that email. The home environment, that is ucsc.edu, the main university website. That update from University Relations is now leading our process. We think that makes sense because we need to create a common look and feel. And the home environment, which is our largest trafficked website, it's our big flagship, that should lead the process. And then our site should reflect that look and feel. So the home environment will be followed by the web theme, or the WordPress web theme that we've talked about in some ways. That's under development also by University Relations. That's going to reflect that look and feel from the home environment. And once we have those pieces, that's when we roll out the full-on web service from ITS to all campus. The project is a collaboration between ITS and university relations. So to quickly summarize up the access to the new WordPress service, which we really hope to be ready by now. It's going to take about 3 to 4 extra months to complete. Parts of the web service and ecosystem are already in operation, and many of you have already engaged in those things. The aforementioned training, consulting, open labs, our community right here. The web liaisons group, they're crafting plans to guide departments and divisional website strategies. And what I wanted to just reiterate, what are the things you can do with your website right now, knowing that there's a change in sequencing and a delay there. Again, it's a great time to focus on intranet content. It's a great time to ramp up content strategy work if you haven't been doing that already. It's a great time to have a conversation with your website liaison, to ask them questions, to say, what is the strategy for our unit going forward? One thing I would recommend is waiting on hiring outside firms. If that's part of your plan, I'd say hold on for the moment, because we're not going to be provisioning any new sites until that service is ready in March. And we don't want you to, walk that path or put money on the table that is going to cause a problem when the web service isn't ready to, have you on board yet. So with that, this is where I want to pause and just really have a conversation and see what questions you have. Yeah, Rob did note the first two, the home environment and the web theme, they are happening in tandem, on a parallel process. Feel free to drop any questions or mic on at this point, if you like. And I'll give it a minute here to think of what that process looks like. Rob, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything in about the process at the moment. Please feel free to.
I guess a touch of history, not deep history, but 2022 history. When we started building the theme, it was right around this time last year, right before the break, that I had Jason start working on that. The intent originally with the theme was to mimic WCMS. So the theme was going to be looking similar, or that was going to be the source of how we modeled the theme. Early, I want to say March of this year, the decision was made that it should look more different, that it shouldn't just look like WCMS, even though it's WordPress. And when it is WordPress with all the blocks and things that are available, it would have looked different anyway. But the idea was, you know what, we should probably update the design even more. That can be complicated, because when you say we're going to make something look like WCMS, there's 10 years of history and consensus building already there to just build right off of. When the decision is made to do something different, now you're in new territory, uncharted territory. It can be much harder, and that adds time to a process. We're now working pretty smoothly, but it took a long time to get to a place where we can be more agile and nimble. But the home environment is in development, the theme is in development at the same time, and yeah, this timeline is where we're at.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rob. Chris notes, sorry, Chris, I think it's an acronym for something, but there was an end of 2023 expectation that sites be moved to WordPress. Is this also being pushed out 3 to 4 months or more? Yeah, I would even say that flag we're planting in the tail end is tied into a project of moving the data center, which is where many of the servers, the physical locations I guess where our servers are located, that is closing down and moving, and we're tying that timeline into that transition piece. So yeah, I think there's going to be, end of 2023 was like like a gold star time. Like if we could get it done then, great. But obviously there's a delay that's happening right here. And I don't think it's reasonable to say that like the delay on our side means you have less time to do the work that you need to do. We still think everybody's going to have at least a year plus, even more than that, I would say, to be able to work their strategy from top to bottom all the way to, publishing the site. So yeah, I think there's going to be some more time.
Yeah, just to add a little bit onto that too, like I'm personally uncomfortable with saying this is when you'll need to be done before you can even start doing work. So I would look to the launch of the service as the moment when we start any kind of counting clock and then develop a reasonable timeline from there. There is some pressure to move away from WCMS and we'll have to work with that. But I would, imagine that once you have a service to use, that is the time when we will come to you and say, here's an approximate timeline.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, if I recall correctly, for the acronym. Sorry. Yeah, and I would even say like some of our we have pilot partners who we've actually been learning some lessons from as they've been developing their sites, which has actually fed like some of the reasons why we've decided we need to do some more development work. They've actually told us that even when they do get access to the instance of WordPress, there's still enough work of organization, governance, strategy, determining who's doing what, determining what content is right, determining how we're going to do this thing. Do we have processes in place internally that we know how we're going to do this complete redesign? That's going to take time too. And that should be, count that in for the part of your planning for your website as well too. Sue notes, is there a process, template, or group plan for the college websites? We have been in contact with some of the folks at the top end level of the college's websites, and I know there is some planning work going on right now. And I think, yeah, that would make a lot of sense that there would be a standardized way to approach the colleges and what they're doing. I know on our consultation, the last consultation we had with them, they were going to go back and kind of like process and figure out where they're going to go with that. So I don't know if I have a great answer to it yet, but I know that that is one of the considerations underway. Cool. All right. We'll leave this question open. We can circle back to the end of it if you think of something as we go. But I think we'll keep moving with today's presentation, and we'll do kind of like a quick little presentation going into a design activity. And this is something that folks have relayed to us. Alt text. What the heck is alt text? And how do I do it well? Alt text is one of the accessibility features that helps your website be more inclusive. If I were to describe it in like not getting technical at all, I would say alt text provides equality with your website in the way that you can provide the same experience with an image or a visual of some sort on your website for someone who is sighted and to someone who has low, limited, or no sight and might need assistive technologies to see those things. I would note alt text is required. Alt text is going to flag your website as an inaccessible website if we don't go through the steps to make sure that it's there. When you have pictures and images on your website, they should be contextual to the content that's on the page. So if I have a page about, I don't know, surfing, I should probably have a picture of a surfboard. Like that's a contextual relationship where I would talk about. I don't know if we have any pages about surfing here on campus, but I'm just saying like the image should be somehow connected to what you're saying on the page, because that provides context and that helps the user understand that we're on a certain topic and that's what we're focused on. You don't want to add just random pictures to your page because really when you add images and pictures, it's an opportunity to tell a story. Alt text should tend to be brief and again, add context of what you're trying to say. So with somebody who has limited, low, or no sight, they can still get the same thing that somebody who can visually see that page. So this is something that we've worked on, we've worked on internally to say, like, what does it mean to write good alt text? And I usually use the rule that alt text should be brief. You don't want to tax the person who's using assistive technology with a long paragraph to explain what a single image is, when all they really need is just a description of how that image fits into the context on the page. So I wouldn't do the bad description here. Well, even though it's true, it's very much true, and that could be alt text, but you wouldn't want to do a long, lengthy description, because an assistive technology would have to read that back to somebody when all they need is just like a little bit of information to attach them. You don't want to stuff alt text with the not great example, bear, brown bear, grizzly bear, mammal. That doesn't really help provide much context too. It would be okay in this situation to say brown bear, but even more contextual, let's assume that this is on a page that has animals on it. This would be a close-up of a bear or a brown bear's face. That's a legitimate way to describe alt text on a page. Let's look at another example. A sign. That's not great. Or sign.jpg. That's also not great and doesn't help somebody out too much, because that might not describe exactly what's going on here. The long list of things. We don't want to aim for that too. Yeah, a takeaway sign, that works. And then getting a little more specific, like if there's text in your image, it's almost okay to translate that text into your alt text, because that will be helpful to the person using this image. Yes, I see a question. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add, if the purpose of the image is to convey what's written in the image, then it is required to put in the alt text, right? Like if we need to know that also many other foods and drinks is part of the reason that you have that image up and it's not conveyed in the text anywhere, then you need to put also many other foods and drinks in the alt text.
Yeah, you point out a great use case here, Andrea. The very fact that when there is text on an image, you won't know if you're using assistive technologies what that text is on the image. People who are sighted could definitely, see that and say, okay, I read that and understand the context. But when we do things, and this applies not only for like an image that we might use, what about a hero or a billboard or something where we embed text into the image and create that image and just post that without providing that context piece, that equitable piece on there. Text on an image is never a great solution. In this case, this is a photo of somewhere out in the world, and nobody created this text on an image. But when we do things, when we design heroes and billboards, we want to make sure those things are accessible, and those need that equitable alt text on them. So yeah, I agree. In this instance, we might also want to say also many other food and drinks in that alt text as well. Let's look at another example. There's lots of different ways you could do this. Is there a perfect way to create alt text? I don't know if there's an absolute perfect. I think you just get close to the target. And I think when we would just say that this is the chancellor and vice chancellor and give their name, that's legit. We could describe the background, but like the point of this image is really just to show that these two people are standing there together. And that's great. That's what we'd want to do. So, we don't necessarily have to add extra information. Now, here's a little bit of a curveball. What if your image is complex, like a graph or a chart or something like that? This gets a little trickier because this is doing that exact thing that we were talking about. It's creating text on top of an image. And not only that, this is trying to show relationships between an X and Y graph to understand what the heck is going on here. In these situations, oh yes, Becca, thank you. I don't know if I mentioned that. You don't need to say it's a picture of this person, because that is assumed. And assistive technology will say image, chancellor, vice chancellor. Yeah, you can leave that part off because it's extra information. The other thing you can do with text is create a caption on page. And in the situation where there's something more complex going on in this image, like this one, this is a graph of Facebook usage. that I get from a service called Statissa that gives me like data information about how technology is being used. And I like it and it's great, but just looking at this, I don't know what's going on here. And what they usually do is add captions, which is really just text, on the page next to the image or connected in some way to the image to show what's going on there. Yes, I see a hand up.
So I'm new to the users group. This is my first time coming.
Welcome.
So alt text is different from a caption.
Alt text is different from a caption. Okay. Yes, in the way that you would plug it into the image, and the way that the assistive technology would read that back to you. Does that make sense? So like if you have just an image, you'll go into your content management system, Cascade or WordPress in the future, and on that image, it'll have an option or a way that you can say, what's the alt text or what's the alternative text that I would put in? You can put that in. Or you could go to put this image on your web page and then just add extra text. There's probably even, does WordPress have the caption feature on the images too, Rob? Is that a part of it? Yeah, so there's a way to just plug in the caption, which would just be on the text page. So visibly, alt text won't be shown on the page, but assistive technology would pick that up. A caption would be visibly shown on the page, and assistive technology would also pick that up because it's text on the page.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm asking, because I've gotten some training in the past, and my knowledge from before was to always include the caption so that assistive technology would read that for the visually impaired. But in this case, would we do one or the other and not both?
I probably wouldn't do both because that's adding extra information. That would be, I might get it repeated twice to me if I'm using that technology. And is that, a major crime? No, but it's just an extra layer of information that you don't need to add in there. So I would do one or the other.
Can I also add that sometimes alt text has very limited number of characters that you can put in, and so maybe captioning might afford you more room to describe what's going on, like if it's a chart like this. But what I would recommend doing in that instance is to put in the alt text, please refer to caption for description of image, right? So then the screen reader tells the reader, this is what you need to do to get the information from this space, because some people might not be accustomed to going to captions instead of alt text.
Yeah, dig that. And like these are also, like I said, writing good alt text is an art in some ways. These are questions you can also bring to Open Labs too. What's a good way to create that and get a hand from somebody who has, a lot of experience in this space? That's a great space to get help. Chris notes that case for using both alt text and caption. Oh, the case for using both alt text and caption, a graph with alt text explanation while the caption cites the source. It seems reasonable. Okay, we'll do one more bit here. Link text. This is another space that's, I think, it happens all the time. Generic and non-descriptive links like read more and click here, they don't do a lot to help the user make a decision. And they don't do the work for people using those assistive technologies who often scan through links very quickly to navigate a page. It's much better to associate an action in context with what the user will be doing. And the example here is the do this, don't do this. View the syllabus, I think is reasonable. Click here for the syllabus, might not be as great. I guess really what I would want you to take home is try to avoid read more or click here. There are certain situationals that you'll have to work with, and sometimes it's like read more about the syllabus is the best way you can frame something, but at least that's a little more specific as to what it is, because the thing we want to avoid is on a page, if we have 15 links that all say read more, and somebody is having that read back to them by assistive technology, that's going to get confusing and hard to understand, like what is going on in this situation. So the thought here is really try to make those a little more descriptive when you use your links. Yes, Andrea, please hop in.
I'd like to add one sort of trick that we use at the DRC is if we take away all words except for the hyperlink, does the reader know where they're going?
Yeah.
Right. So in this instance, I would know on the do this list, I know that that link is going to some kind of syllabus. The next link is going to some kind of Canvas video tutorial. Time off request form, 18th century architecture. So if I'm just reading the links, I still know where I'm going if I click on that.
Yeah, and I would add another good practice is try not to drop full URLs into your web page copy. It's not as helpful as it seems, even though like I know the idea is like I'm giving somebody a legitimate URL and they can look at it and see that this is not spam or something. I think that's okay. In most situations, you can get away with just adding the link text rather than a full URL in there. So I'm going to move it on here and we'll do a little activity. I'm going to share a Google Doc and we're going to work from a Google Doc. I'll share it out in chat here. And we'll do practice. The only way you get better at these things is practicing them. I'll let people on board to this. If you haven't used Google Docs with a lot of people in it, it's going to be awkward for a minute because everybody might be grabbing a row at the same time. But what I want you to do is add your suggested alt text to the highlighted image, the one that's circled right now, in the table right below it. And then let's vote and see which ones we think are the best ones. So take a minute. We'll do like 120 seconds on this exercise. It's okay if you duplicate things too. And just add more rows as you need them. Go like 30 more seconds here. Good. It looks like, I mean, based on all of our suggestions here, we're pretty close. Everyone's pretty much aligned with that, even though two of them obviously got the most votes. They're all pretty close to each other. That's good. That was an easy one though.
Adam, can we pause here a minute just to say,
Yeah.
I don't think any of these are wrong. There's no wrong
Right.
answer here. And
Mhm.
and this is sort of the what can be deceptive about alt text is thinking that you need to get it exactly right. I feel like all of these are describing what's in the image.
Mhm.
Some of them a little more detailed than others, but you're conveying the gist of what's in the image, and that's a good alt text, all of them.
I think it meets that brevity clause. It's not overbearing. It tells what's going on in the image. It conveys the connection between the image and the copy around it. Lisa, yeah.
Yeah, so is it prudent, I guess, to take in mind what the words are written there, so you don't have to restate what's, I mean, they're modifying each other. It's a package, right?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, that's a good note. I mean, the text there does say leadership and Cynthia right there, right off the bat. So you might want to consider that. I think with the image itself, I might still go for the proper title in there, because it'll, a screen reader coming back will say image, UCSC Chancellor Cynthia. Catherine Levine, sorry. Am I saying? No, wait a minute. Sorry. Anyway, it'll read that back, then it'll go leadership, and then it'll go the rest of the text on the page there. So, I mean, I think you're 6 of one, half of the other. Do your best, I think, is like doing something is better than doing nothing, right?
Also, I think like for me, alt text is, I just assume it's not visible. And so it will be read out loud. And in that case, it's not going to be on the page. So whatever's on the page is the text you want people to read. The alt text is your description of the image. If you look just to the left of the one that's circled, you have a pile of slug buttons. So in that case, you would be very descriptive about the image, and it wouldn't have anything to do with the text that's around it.
Right. Andrea, yeah.
I just want to add that when you're creating these, you also want to make sure that in your structure that you're connecting them, because if you don't structure it correctly, then the screen readers default to top to bottom, right, left to right, right? So what may happen is if like, let's say you've made all of the images one block and you're just kind of visually connecting them to the script underneath, right? Then the screen reader is actually going to go image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4, right? And then it won't necessarily connect it back to leadership. So keep that in mind too, that when you're structuring this, you'll want to make sure that the screen reader will connect the image of the chancellor with the leadership underneath. And then that also helps you determine what kind of alt text that you need to put in. It is a giant, delicate balance of doing this, so.
Yeah. So in this situation here, we have 4 images up with associated text with them. And that's a trickier situation. I think a good rule of thumb is like simplicity here. This is certainly one way we could present this about information. I'm guessing it was done to condense everything into a certain way, but absolutely, when you do need to design these things, you need to make sure that that image is associated with that headline and that text that's going to be on the page as well. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Let's do one more example. We'll just head to the next one down, which is the LGBTQ image. And yeah, let's spend another 60 seconds coming up with this image here and see what you note. Cool. We'll do like 15 more seconds here. And for anyone that wants to hop on, was this harder? Was this one harder based on what you saw and why? I would note, so it's got a caption on it too, right? And we're talking about alt text that would go on the page. So what do I do in this situation? Because the caption actually adds a little more context to the story, I think, itself, as opposed to the image itself. So this kind of hits some of the topics that we were talking about earlier. So should this have alt text in the first place? I would say, yeah, definitely needs alt text on it. Knowing that we have a caption on there as well, that adds a little more context to the story, I think just about everyone here is about right on. I would call that the rainbow or the pride flag. And that might be all I put on there, because that shows context to what this story is about and the image itself. Yep, it looks like, yeah, you're right. That's not just the pride flag. That's the
Yeah, I was gonna
You're
say,
right,
for me, I
yeah.
struggled with this one because I couldn't remember what this specific pride flag
Right.
is called. Because it's not the general one. I think this one's
Yeah.
called the inclusive one or
The inclusive flag, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember, so I had to like start going to Google and like, which one is this one called specifically? Because the rainbow pride flag doesn't have the triangle in it.
Great. What questions do these bring up? Do these seem simple? Do these seem difficult? Progress pride flag. Thank you, Allison.
I think it's a lot more difficult when the picture is only tangentially related to the page topic. Then it becomes a lot harder to, put a caption there that connects it to the content, because in reality, it's just somebody wanted to put a picture there. And it's kind of hard to, I don't know, make it important or make it relevant.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. What advice would you give to somebody in that situation then?
Be creative, I guess.
Be creative, yeah. Maybe choose images that are in context, or don't choose ones that are just like there because you like them to be there.
Yes,
be
whenever possible.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. All right, I'll leave this document open. You're welcome to go in and play some more. There's some more examples in this to play along. But I think we might just switch back to the agenda, which is really all we had going for today. It was really just this alt text and to talk about the adjustment and timeline. Any new questions come up, thoughts about your approach, knowing that March is looking like the date rather than right now?
So I'm sorry if this is a very basic question, but I was looking at the link that you all sent, the website's link to for instructions. I was a little bit confused about the directions. If we already have an existing website, we don't have to request it, right? We're going to get access to our own WordPress pages or site, or do we actually have to actively request access?
Yeah. Do you know, Rosa, are you in the Cascade or WCMS service right now?
We're in WCMS.
Yeah. So the WCMS, that's the one that we referred to that's going to get sunset, or it's going to go away eventually. So there would be a process to request a new site in the UCSC WordPress service. And that's what we're saying. That's what's coming March.
Got it. Okay.
So there would actually be a request there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. Okay, great. I mean, I would reiterate that that place, websites.ucsc.edu. We're adding more content as we go along here to help support you in the process of your website choices. And there is training. There are open labs available for you to come and ask questions to at any point. There's also a way to provide feedback and ask more questions of folks who are on the service side of our website program. And with that, I think we can wrap it a little early unless there are more questions. Give everybody some time back.
Can you just share the link in the chat?
Sure, you bet.
You know, a topic, Adam, that I think would be great for this group, maybe not now, but it's what I've asked you about, is the difference between a button and a hyperlink at the right time. maybe for next time.
Yeah, great. Right, that's a good question. Are there other things that you'd like to talk about in this group? And we can certainly cover that one. And as most things, the answer is always, it depends, right?
Right.
Great. With that, I'll give everybody a little time back today and